I'm Mike Peterson, and welcome to my podcast. What's up, team? This is Mike Peterson.
Vince Peterson.
Now let's get after it. So we're talking about our discussion today and what we wanted to hit on. And it would be silly for us to not talk about what's going on in this country right now, a big event that just occurred. The elephant in the room. Yes, the big elephant and the donkey. And so we decided to talk about a little bit about the politics of what's happening, but we're going to relate it to how that looks from a team perspective and why even in situations like that, you can pull out segments of that team mindset and what works. So look, we're not going to talk politics, right? I'm not going to talk about Vinny in our politics. I'm not going to tell you who's right and who's wrong. I mean, left. But we are going to talk about it today. So, and Vinny, you're in the political game, or you were.
Yeah.
It's funny because we don't think about that from a perspective of you have Republican, Democrat, right? And that team concept, right? And then the bigger team, which is America.
Yeah.
Right? Or being American. So how did you see that team perspective come out in politics?
So I've always viewed it like that. And I again, this is my own little platform of this is why it's important to play sports growing up.
Right.
Because you can see things through that lens, through a face mask, as you would say. But you see the kind of division and, to be honest, sometimes hatred just for people being on the other side.
Right.
I think people sometimes lose the perspective of, it's like playing in a game.
Right.
But instead of shaking hands after, we still want to fight. Like there's still this anger and vitriol that just oozes out sometimes. And unfortunately, what we don't understand when it comes to politics, and my former employer, Congressman Tim Ryan, give him all the credit in the world. He used to say this all the time. He's like, we don't have time to worry about what letters next to our name when America is competing with all these other countries.
Right.
And we are competing for our kids to be able to be successful
right.
and not to be dependent on other countries and prices going sky high and all these issues. So he's we can't keep doing this version of what we've been doing. But it has been one of those moments when I worked in politics where it was stressful. I mean, it was one of those things where I felt myself thinking about it all the time. You couldn't watch the news without sweating. You couldn't say anything without worrying, oh my God, am I to this? Am I to that? And at some point, the joke I used to say is, I just want to get back to arguing about the Browns and Steelers.
Right.
Like, I want to go to the grocery store, and to be honest, I don't want to see your shirt on who you voted for. Who do you like, Lakers or the Cavs tonight? Like, why can't we get back to that? Because that's the stuff that builds camaraderie and reminds us that we're a team as Americans. And as Americans, we still got to talk to our neighbors, even if they have a different sign up.
Right.
My neighbors had different signs up than I had, but guess what? When I leave my house to travel, the first one I call, hey man, you mind watching my house while I'm gone? Because we still love each other. We're still on the same team. We look at our little block in my street. It's an intersection street. We look at that. That's ours. We all take care of one another there, regardless of how your political views are. But too many times we've allowed the game of the election. So let's say the election's a game. It's a big game. I'm not going to say it's a small game. And that's going to determine a lot for whatever time period. But we've let that game distract us from the bigger game in world competition and trying to do what's best for the country.
And it's interesting because much like football, and look, we're not trying to make this simplistic. There's so many emotions and whatever is involved in politics. But when you look at a football team, there's an offensive side of the ball and there's a defensive side. Both have different goals and objectives, right? And sometimes even in that team concept, they butt heads, right? But the bottom line is they have different goals, different objectives for what they're doing, for what their responsibilities are. But the overall team goal is the same. So I would remind everyone that, listen, you can be independent, libertarian, Republican, Democrat, but you're an American. And in the end, to your point, we are competing globally. And some of that competition is, it's real.
Very real.
Yeah, and it's dangerous. And be mindful that we, as Americans, yes, we are looking out for Americans' best interest. And so we have these politics and these elections, and I thought about what it took for those two parties to get where they're at. And it takes a vision, first of all, and they all have to have that same vision and work together. It takes leadership. It takes collaboration. It takes all these things that we just don't think about. We just think it's a them against us. And I'm so mindful of that. But what I'm even more sensitive about is that in the end, when it's all said and done, that we fall back on us being Americans. Now, I know that some people will watch this and still say, well, this person's a joke and that person's bad and this person's, you know what? I'm going to say this. First of all, we have invested in this country. We have sweat equity in this country. And in the end, leaders, coaches, whatever, the coaches can coach, but you're on the field. So you have a direct impact. So how you treat people, how you care for people, how you inspire people, motivate people.
Yeah.
Right? How you even disagree with people. Listen, if you all want entertainment, come to our house, our big family gathering on Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, doesn't matter, right? Because politically, we go at it, right? And there is a lot of trash talking. There is a lot of laughing. And it's so funny because we have even seen generations now, our kids getting into it.
My brother-in-law, I think he comes just to stir it up.
Just to stir it up.
Yeah.
And he's one of these young men, and I think he's 19.
He's 21 now.
21 years old.
Yeah.
And he'll sit and he'll say, hey, Uncle Vince, what do you think about this? And he'll drop a bomb, knowing that we're going to go at it. Right? But in the end, we always find a common ground to get back to. And I think that's such an important thing when we talk about having a team mindset. And we use this example because it is so extreme. And the other part I would say about having that team concept is don't let outside forces contaminate your team. We were always taught when it came to the media, well, a couple things. One, you don't argue out in public. You don't fight out in public. All your fighting is done inside, and you never tear each other down. Now, you can talk about who's the better player, who's the better receiver, or the prettiest receiver, who's the better linebacker, running back, okay? But you never tear the other guy down. And I think in team, having that mindset, that part's critical, man.
After the election, I posted something that I thought would get no traction. It was like at 6 a.m. I was half asleep. You wake up and you have those random thoughts on your mind. And after I wake up, I see who won the election. And immediately I start scrolling social media, which I've already been like, yep, I'm going to go ahead and take my social media break. Too crazy here. But so I'm seeing all the posts from both sides, right? I will say this. There's a lot of people who say, I wish these guys would just hand the ball to the ref. Boy, they've been celebrating like crazy. I'm like, yeah, I don't see you guys just handing the ball to the ref over here, how you celebrate. But so I'm looking, and I just posted, I said, you know what, guys? Whether today you're partying or you're protesting, you're happy or you're frustrated, at the end of the day, this nation has never been built on the back of one person, but it's always been about us. So you can make a decision today to go attack today and make it your best day.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, regardless of what everything else is, we control our immediate surroundings. We control how we go attack each day. We control how we go provide for our families and the things that we do. And I thought that was going to get no traction. Like people would read that, maybe get a few likes.
Right.
I've gotten more comments on that than, probably since 3-4 years ago. It was amazing because so many people were like, I just needed to hear that today. Just need to be reminded of that today. Because they want, at the end of the day, you got to realize you lost the game. It is either you won a game, great, or you lost the game.
Right.
At the end of the day, the sun comes out the next day and you make the choice. President-elect Trump or Vice President Harris, they do not make the choice how you attack the day.
There it is.
You make that choice.
There it is.
And I think more people, again, back on my sports platform, I think this is why it's important to play sports. You got to learn how to lose. You got to learn how to win.
Right. Well, and that goes back to, so now you're dealing with conflicts. Guess what?
Yep.
In a team setting, you have to deal with conflicts.
Yes, sir.
Right? And what we have found is that from a sports mentality, you deal with those conflicts constructively.
Yep.
Okay? If I have an issue, then I need to sit and talk to you about it. And I need to share, and maybe we have a common understanding. Or maybe it was, you know what, you enlightened me on something that I didn't realize right? I remember someone was talking about Matthew McConaughey, and he was telling a story that he saw two guys talking about, I don't know if it was politics or whatever, but that when it was over, someone walked up to the one guy and said something to the effect of, wow, you really won your argument. And the guy said, I wasn't trying to win an argument. I was trying to understand where he was coming from, right? And that, as a team concept, we need to do a lot more of that, okay? And so when you talk about politics, and it's always this, man, how about we just try to understand? And we're not talking about the extreme issues. We know what's right and wrong.
Yeah.
You treat people differently because of their race, color, gender. That's wrong, okay? You treat people differently because of their educational background or their economical background. That's a problem. But you know what? In sports, you don't have that because no one knows your background. I didn't know who was rich on my team and who was poor on my team. I just knew that they were teammates. And I knew that they had strengths that I didn't have and vice versa. And I knew that they had beliefs that I didn't agree with and vice versa. But we never treat anyone differently.
That's there's been some talk about certain players who've come out in support of different people, and how's that exist in there's a lot of people, how's that exist in the locker room, and how do they, because at the end of the day, I know he's different.
That's right.
I know we come from different backgrounds and we think differently, but guess what? I've just spent my blood, sweat, and tears with this man for the past X amount of years.
Come on.
I literally, when we go on the field, there's that mindset of, I am going to give you my everything. I just ask for that in return.
Right.
So when somebody does that, there is a bond that you build with that person that's, I won't say unbreakable, but to this day, I got high school and college teammates. If they call me and they're like, hey, Vince, I need you, I'm rolling because of that bond we made in those moments. So yes, they may have different political views than me. They may have different, views on education or all these other things. That doesn't take away from the team and what we are as a team.
So when they call you, do you ask them, well, before I come help you, what's your political stance?
Never.
Right? Or do you say, hey, before I go do this, what's your religion? Not at all. Not at all. But part of that is because you guys have gone through something, right? That develops this trust and loyalty. Look, this is why you see it not just in sports. You see it in law enforcement. You see it with fire folks, right?
Yes, you
do.
You
see it in the military, especially in the military.
Yep.
I had someone, former military guy, Navy SEAL, made a comment to me one time. He said, I was asking him about, hey, man, when you're going through what you're going through, do you ever think about dying and not wanting to die and the fears and scares and that you have in going to combat? And he said, no, Mike. He said, you know what I think about? He said, I think about the fact that I'm willing to give my life so my partner can go home to his family. Now, think about that. That person is willing to lose their life so they can go home to their family. That's loyalty.
Yeah.
That's trust. And those are the things that excite me about being a part of a team that you get just so unbelievably excited about. And you have your arguments on the team, right?
Yeah,
all the time. You have arguments. Even family, we have had disagreements on things like politics because you said something that was wrong.
We can debate that. I don't know if we should do it on camera. I don't want them to see you lose the debate. Okay, I don't want them to see that. So we'll just save that for Thanksgiving. That's what we should do.
Oh yeah, no, we're loading up. Trust me, I've already taken notes, and I'm bringing reinforcements.
Oh, listen,
just so you know, because we're all writing down notes. Okay?
Oh, they better be bringing a lot. I've been out here checking percentages. I got data.
Listen, if we could invite y'all to our house, and we won't because we don't want to share the German chocolate cake that our mother makes, but if we could, you would find it very entertaining. And you would see that what we're talking about is real because we talk about politics and current events, and we are very passionate about it. We're purpose-driven people. But in the end, it's always laughing and joking and being mindful of each other's different perspectives.
My daughter, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. My oldest is a little hesitant now. When people come over and get loud, she's like, are you guys mad?
Right.
And I'm like, no, Sophia, we're just talking loudly. So it's funny because she grows up in that environment, and people eventually will get to a point where people talking loud or having passionate discussions won't bother her because, hey, she's around it, right? I have this question for you because this is something I think we all face. We're just being honest. You got to go to work the next day. And let's say there's some people that didn't vote the way you did. And I'll give you this example. I just want to see how you feel about it. So 2016's election, I went to bed thinking one person won.
Right.
I woke up at 4 a.m. because I had to go to, I was on the state SWAT team STAR. I had training that day. down in Columbus, so I had to wake up at 4 a.m. So I wake up and I just happen to check, man, who won? I turn the TV on, and I'm like, what?
Right.
I'm shocked.
Right.
I knock. I'm still living at home, so I like knock on my
knock
on my parents' door. I'm like, did president? They were like, yeah, he won. Now leave me alone. It's 4 a.m. So I go down the training, and I remember, I think it was me and one other person that didn't vote for him, and I remember everybody there was celebrating.
Right.
And there was a moment in time where I had to make a decision. Right.
Yes.
Do I get offended?
Right.
Because I lost. I didn't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And or do I let them have their moment? And the result of that was there were jokes. There were a lot of jokes.
Right.
There were a lot of jokes.
Right.
But these are my guys. We not only train together, but we've had to chase people. We've done all this different stuff together. So these are my guys and girls. I think one girl at the time. But it ended up being like a fun thing.
That's right.
It's funny how it turned out because it did turn into a kind of like camaraderie thing. Yeah. And now every time they said something, they'd be like, so Vince, do you feel like that's okay?
Right.
Whatever. But there's a lot of people who had to go to work the day after with people that didn't necessarily agree or align with them. How do you still keep that team atmosphere, even a kind of heated thing like this past election?
Yeah, so it's happened. It just recently happened. And a couple of things. One, I know who I can say what to.
Yeah.
But then I would actually ask people that I knew were really upset. Hey, man, you good? All good? And I would say to them what we've said here today is that, listen, the coach is the coach, but you and I are on the field. So we have direct impact as to what happens in this game, right? This game called life. And so shake it off, stomp it under your feet, and let's just go to work. And I believe in that mindset because I think the other way is dangerous.
Yeah.
If you walk around resentful and angry and mad, okay, well, then you're not of any use. Let's be honest. You're not of any use. You're not good. You're not good for the team. We are all going to have and even in sports, you don't like a call that a coach makes
all the time,
right? In your corporation, you don't like a decision that a boss makes, right? A manager makes, a VP makes, whatever. But guess what? And I have always believed in and lived this. I may not like it, but if you then tell me, if my boss says to me, if she says, hey, okay, now here's what I want you to do, go do it. Guess what? I'm going to tear it up.
There you go.
I'm going to do it like it was my idea. Just if a coach says to me, hey, Mike, I don't want you to blitz. I want you to pass drop, okay? Guess what? I'm going to drop like a mug, right? And I'm going to play it the best way I know how. And I think, so you got to be understanding to those folks and just remind them of why we are here, right? The stage may be set by someone else, but we're the actors.
Yeah.
So that's my approach to it, man. And I don't try to start unnecessary arguments, although my wife may disagree with that.
I'm sure she does.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
I know. Just don't talk to her. But I just believe that's the right mindset, man. Just, hey, guys, I get it. I have a coach who was rooting for a different outcome, right? And yesterday I see him, and I'm like, hey, man, so you good? Yeah, no, I'm good. And just started talking, and that was it. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't attack one another, right? Yep. I didn't call him a name, and he didn't call me a name. Why? Because it's okay. Man, God has given us the opportunity to make decisions on our own. He's given us the ability to make choices. And so that's a wonderful thing.
I mean, I learned that every day just by obviously having men like you and my dad in my life who you guys spent a lot of years probably feeling like you guys were right about a lot of things. And then you have me come along and I have to educate you guys on so much. Yeah. I'm sure Ava and Estelle, when you guys hear this, it's a tiring job. I know.
Are you a millennial?
I am a millennial, but I am one of the older millennials, okay?
Right.
There's like a second half of us that we all go. We ain't one of those, all right?
But I wasn't asking because I was making a judgment. I was just asking because I couldn't remember.
What generation are you?
You were a millennial.
Are you Gen X or a baby boomer?
I'm first of all, I'm Gen X.
Oh, okay.
All right. And I want to apologize because in my head, I just called you a name for calling me a baby boomer.
It's hard. Your ages these days, you guys.
Gen X.
But in all seriousness, though, I just think it's so important to, one, be willing to have conversations with people that do think differently than you, but also take a moment, step back, look around you in your life and what all's going on. Guess what happened? The sun came out.
That's right.
Your kids still needed fed.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like you still had to go to work, and guess what? Your job was still the same.
That's right.
So sometimes, and I get being upset in the moments. I'll never forget the last game I played in high school. It was played at Solon Stadium, and they're actually a client now. And seeing that field, like, I still get flashbacks.
Yeah.
Then you get angry, you get these. So there's emotions there. Yeah. I remember crying after that last. You're so devastated.
Yeah.
Like, God, I don't know how I can. And then somehow, some way.
Yeah.
The next day, I got up, I ate, and you just get into your progressions again, and you realize, man, I loved that moment of high school football, but that was my last game. I took it for what it was. Now let's move on to what's next in life.
Right.
I think being able to rationalize, okay, let's move on to what's next, the next day, the next moment, the next thing, and keep moving forward in business. And this is the one thing that I've seen a little bit now. I want to hear your perspective. Moving forward, right? So even with things like the election, all this stuff, right now everybody's got to push forward, regardless of how you feel or whatnot. You got to push forward. In business, when you make changes, especially when they're big changes, because I'm a firm believer, if something doesn't evolve, it's dying, right? Like, you got to continue to evolve and continue to grow. But when you make big changes, people do not like change. People reject change. Right. People are uncomfortable with change. How do you handle that while still keeping your team intact?
Yeah, so this is where I just got to be outright blunt with you. When I first started at Goodyear, I kept hearing this from some of my teammates. Well, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've always done it. And so I asked them, when was that? And they said, before you got here. I said, exactly. Now, I'm not looking to change just to make change, but we're going to assess what we've been doing. And then we're going to look at the way some things are being done now. And we're going to put together a winning program. It's like football, like sports, right? There are things you did 30 years ago that you don't do now in that sport, okay? In lacrosse, men, you used to be able to put your stick to your chest and just run down the field and not cradle. That's why Jim Brown was such a star at Syracuse, right? Who's going to tackle Jim Brown? He's just running down the field. But they've changed that. Yeah. Now you cradle. So that was the key. And the other part is I made sure everyone got invested. So you guys come with some new ideas, right? And let's get invested as a team. And so I think that's the way you handle that. I think you have to handle that. But when I say I'll be blunt with you, if folks don't want to make that change, well, then when the balloon has too much weight on it and it won't rise, you got to cut a couple bags. Yeah. Right? In order to elevate. And I think that's critical. And I think we're going to make changes in this country. And we just have to be prepared for it. And again, I can't say this enough, guys. And remember, guys is a genderless term. I don't care what side you're on. You wear the American jersey. You are an American. The Dallas Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys. You don't see a Dallas Cowboy wearing any other jerseys. They're Dallas Cowboys. There's the offense, there's defense, special teams. Different beliefs, different responsibilities, different opinions. But in the end, we are Americans, and we are the ones on the field. And so if we stay mindful of that, we can do great things in this country, right? But we have to remember our individual effort matters to the team. Our goals are not always Vincent's goals or Michael's goals, but the team's goals. If we keep that mindset, I think it was Helen Keller who said, with little people, you can do little things. With a great amount of people, you can do great things, right? And so I believe you have that team concept, and that's where we come from. That is how we will continue to grow as a country, as a family, right? Yeah. As a community. That's how we grow. Yeah. That's how we get better.
Next time, I would appreciate if you don't use my trauma and bring up the Dallas Cowboys right now.
That's exactly why I brought up. Yes.
Still suffering from that trauma, but it's okay. I'm working through it. I see my therapist twice a week.
That's okay. We'll make sure. I mean, I understand it's a struggle for you because, again, you're a defensive back and you're soft. Hey, look, team, here's the deal. Hope you all are doing well, and we're excited. We enjoyed this conversation, right? We decided to step out on a little bit of faith and talk a little bit about politics and what's happening today. So remember what jersey you wear. Remember, we're the ones on the field. We're the one playing, and we're the ones that have the impact. So keep swinging and keep knocking down giants.